Just hours, the Trump administration will brief top lawmakers in a classified setting on the intelligence that they say shows missiles being moved onto boats in the Persian Gulf. Joining us now to help us understand all of this is Independent Senator Angus King, who serves on the Intelligence and Armed Services Committee. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Allison.
I believe you are the first lawmaker that we have spoken to, and we've spoken to many, who actually has reviewed some of the intelligence this week. Did you see some of the intelligence that this tension is based on?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to review, not a briefing, but review the paper version on Tuesday afternoon. So I have had a chance to I don't think I've seen everything. There's some new reporting this morning about images. I have not seen those, but I have had a look at it, yeah.
Okay, can you characterize it for us, or can you at least tell us if it explains how we've gotten to this point of heightened tension with Iran?
Well, you asked two questions there, and they're two important questions, and they're very different. The first is, can I characterize it? I can't reveal what I've seen in a classified setting, but I can report that you've seen a lot of public reporting about heightened Iranian activity in the region, particularly in Iraq, and that's accurate. I mean, that's what the administration has been saying publicly. The question, though, is what does it mean? And there are two issues that are really worrying me. One is who's provoking whom? In other words, we know that Iran is taking actions. We're taking actions. We declared their IRGC as a terrorist organization. That has ramifications for them. We've ratcheted up the sanctions substantially. We've moved major military assets to the Middle East. Is that are they reacting because they're concerned about what we're doing, or are we reacting because we're concerned what they're doing? And that raises my second concern, which is miscalculation. The Guns of August, one of the great books ever written about the origin of World War II, nobody really knew how it started. And it started small and it escalated. And that's what worries me, because you've got, for example, the Shia militia in Iraq, which are not fully under control of the Iraqi government or at all. They're partially affiliated with Iran, but are they really under control? Let's say a group of people from the Shia militia attack Americans. Is that an Iranian attack, or is that something that could trigger an escalation by us versus Iran, and then suddenly we're on the ladder? That's what's worrying me, and that's why I think the president is absolutely right, according to the reporting that we've heard this morning, to slow this thing down and express a little restraint on some of his advisors who seem to be getting us into a position where something pretty awful could happen.
I mean, we don't have to go all the way back to World War II. I mean, we all remember the faulty intel that led to the belief about WMD and the Iraq War. And so
I don't think there's faulty intel here necessarily. I think the intel may be accurate, but the unanswered question again is, are they reacting to our assertions of action in the Middle East, or are we reacting to them? And that's an unanswered question for me.
Well, that's a really good question. And so why would the U.S. be provoking Iran?
Well, you start with the fact that Iran is a malign actor in the Middle East. There's no doubt about that. Supporting terrorists, they've killed Americans in Lebanon and other places. They're not good guys at all, and the president is trying to put pressure on them. And that's one of the questions: is what's the strategy here? What's the end game? What's the pressure for? If the pressure is to elicit further concessions in the nuclear field or control on ballistic missiles, okay. If the pressure is regime change in Tehran, which John Bolton, as recently as 2 years ago, said was his goal, then that may be unattainable, and that's where we get into this escalation. And I think it's a very, very volatile and dangerous situation. I am gravely concerned, Allison, again, because of the possibility of miscalculation, misunderstanding, misreading of some event, and all of a sudden you're on a ladder of escalation that could be very, very dangerous for this country and for the Middle East.
John Bolton has been pushing for regime change for years. I mean, we can go back to interviews here on CNN from 2006, 2007. Do you have faith in him as National Security Advisor?
Well, it's not up to me. The president appoints his own national security advisor, but there's no question that John Bolton has an agenda. I mean, as recently as 2015, he was telling Iranian exiles we're going to be celebrating in the streets of Tehran in 2019, and here we are. So I have some deep concerns, and I think what the reporting is, and we're all, reading the tea leaves, but the reporting is the president is concerned that perhaps in New England we'd say Bolton's out over his skis, and he's pushing in a direction that the president doesn't necessarily want to go, and I think that's a good idea. I think Mike Pompeo is also very aggressive when it comes to Iran. And by the way, Iran is not Iraq. It's a big country. It's two or three times as big, much bigger economy. This is not one of these things where it would be a 3-day a series of airstrikes. This is and it's also very difficult logistically for us to get troops there, heaven forbid. So this is a very different situation than Iraq, but the concern is we're going to misinterpret something, or they'll misinterpret something, and all of a sudden we're off into a very difficult conflict for us.
While we have you, one more topic. Don Jr., the president's son, has agreed to come back before your committee, Senate Intel. What do you hope to get out of him this time?
Well, I think the real question is to try to square his previous testimony with some of the testimony that we've received subsequently about the Trump Tower meeting and several other topics. I mean, that's the basic purpose. And frankly, this may be an opportunity for him to clarify some of the things that he said before, rather than leave these conflicts. Again, Allison, we're not prosecutors. We're not looking for crimes. We're looking for what happened. And we're looking for how do we prevent it from happening again. So we're trying to get to the basic facts of what went on. And we're not talking about, was this a conspiracy that you can prove beyond a reasonable doubt? We're trying to understand the overall picture of what the Russians did, how they did it, and most importantly, how we can prevent it from happening again in 2020 and beyond.
Senator Angus King, thank you very much for being on New Day.
Thank you, Allison.
John